To all agents of Overwatch. That's not right. To the former agents of Overwatch. This is Winston. Obviously. 30 years ago, the Omnics declared war. The nations of the world had no answer until they called upon a small group of heroes. Overwatch was created to rescue humanity from the Omnic crisis. We became the greatest champions of peace and progress mankind has ever seen. You were chosen because you had powers and abilities that made you... You joined because you... You already know this. Look, the people decided they were better off without us. They even called us criminals. They tore our family apart. But look around! Someone has to do something! We have to do something! We can make a difference again. The world needs us now, more than ever. Are you with me?
This doesn't exist anymore. While I wish I was only speaking within the context of the fictional team, I'm also talking about the game itself. Now don't let my attitude scare you away, as these words are coming from a genuine fan, one who's been around long enough to remember that this startup screen even existed, or where hints of new characters and lore were the most exciting news to draw in the community, or when the greatest controversies were over butt nerfs? Yes, you know the one. But unfortunately, I've reached the point where I can no longer ignore the constant decline Overwatch has been in for the past few years. I can't just sit by and watch my favorite game get torched update after update. I have to say something. I have to intervene, even if it's just complaining in some silly YouTube video. Either way, I have a bone to pick with Overwatch. I'm going to tell you a beautiful and tragic story of how one of my favorite games was unnecessarily exploited and turned into nothing more than a product of corporate greed. I wish I could defend this game any longer, but it hurts so much to even consider it at this point. And I'm sick and tired of people trying to convince me the game is still good or getting better.
We get that you're upset about PvE being canceled. Stop crying about PvE. 90% of this community will complain about any channel. All the community does is stop complaining about Overwatch 2
Stop
free to
crying
play.
about
Get
it.
that
Stop
you're
crying
upset
about
about
it.
PvE.
Stop
Stop
crying
crying.
If they truly cared so much, they'd be trying to finish or at the very least revamp the promised content. But instead, we're left with unfulfilled promises and remnants of what could have been. They have so much material to use, but I just want to know if they're going to do anything with it. Instead of starting off with what I think Overwatch was meant to be, I think it'd be better if I share with you the original vision for the IP found within the game's official visual reference book.
As our favorite gorilla Winston is fond of saying, imagination is the essence of discovery. It turns out that we found our inspiration much closer to home. Our home. Earth. Could we capture the diversity and wonder of our world, but infuse it with the mystery, adventure, and heroism of the universes we dreamed up before? We envisioned a vibrant future that was recognizable but optimistic. A future we'd love to see for ourselves. After all, we wanted our flying cars. The story of Overwatch is, at its heart, about people coming together. About heroes around the world joining forces to save humanity in its darkest hour. Their commitment, their friendships, built a far better future than anyone could have imagined. It's a common thread in Overwatch's world and themes, and it's also the story behind the game's development and the team that came together to make it a reality. As any proud parent can tell you, creating something new is a massive undertaking, and Overwatch was no exception. We are in debt to our Blizzard family. Without their enthusiasm, expertise, and support, none of this would have been possible. We love this game and the world that it lives in, and we can't wait to share it with you. It is our hope that you will enjoy it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to life. Thanks for joining us as we take the first steps on this journey into a brighter future. We're just getting started. From the Overwatch team.
But outside of the lore and world building, there's much fun to be had in the game's multiplayer. The multiplayer consists of 3 roles: tank, damage, and battle mercies. I mean support. Every hero has abilities that can provide advantages or disadvantages in the field that will ultimately contribute to helping your team win. Either way, both teams are dropped into intense competitive scenarios and must coordinate and cooperate if they want to win. This is what defines your team. After picking the role you think fits your playstyle, the next step is deciding what character you think looks the coolest. The base roster was already so unique and colorful, ranging from your average military soldiers all the way to whatever this is. With over 21 characters to choose from, there's a playstyle for practically everyone to find enjoyable. And that was it. Overwatch was turning into a fun and fast-paced game the developers had always envisioned it to be. Or was it missing something? That's when they made the decision. This world needs heroes. Not just soulless characters thrown into a fight, but heroes that give meaning to the fight. There's so much to dissect about each character. Their philosophies, motivations, their abilities, personalities, their overall design choice. It all has a purpose within the story of Overwatch. But with no legitimate campaign to fall back on to fully flesh out these ideas, fans are only given tiny lore implications left in the form of things like vague voice lines.
My town failed another mission. Going soft.
Do not speak to me unless you wish to lose your other eye.
I'd still be the better shot.
Comic book adaptations, legacy skins that come with brief descriptions of their history, environmental storytelling, and some of the greatest cinematic shorts I have ever seen. These give us a peek at the stories behind each of our characters. It's where we'll learn why some enjoy being a hero and why others don't.
You're one of those heroes, aren't you?
Not anymore.
These stories were pretty exceptional. Yes, I did say there wasn't a campaign to fall back on, but these characters are so rich that even their tiny nods to the overarching story are strong enough to represent what Overwatch is supposed to be. After some time, it seemed as if Overwatch just wasn't about the characters it had built itself upon. The heroes were slowly regrouping to protect the world, but it was to prepare for something. A war. Will we get to see Overwatch stop this war from starting, or will we have to see them win it? All of these questions leave an ending to be desired. So, where did it go wrong? Just a quick little heads up, I have a hit or miss relationship with sequels or anything with the number 2 on it. I think I forgot to mention it in my last video, but I hate when something that seems like they were the definitive versions of themselves get a fat 2 slapped on the end of their titles. Why change it when it was already near perfection? And if you're going to change it, are there even enough changes to justify the addition of a 2? I know there are many instances where a sequel is warranted, and that's because there's still a story to be told and room for characters to grow. Overwatch 2 just doesn't have that. Yes, the end of the Overwatch 1 life cycle was evident, and it became more clear with the lack of content, the cinematics mentioning a resurgence of some kind.
Getting the band back together. They want me, but really, they need you.
And then eventually, the announcement of Overwatch 2. Up until that point, the game was in a decent state, but it still lacked the attention of a fully committed team. While Overwatch 1 was a strong enough product in itself, it left the door open for more possibilities. Another entry to carry on and expand their characters and the world. This is fine, of course, but if they're not working on more content to expand this game, what else could they be working on? Presumably the campaign that fans have wanted for a while now, right? Let's start from the beginning. No, not that beginning. That's better. November 1st, 2019. Overwatch 2 is revealed at BlizzCon. The game looks better. There's cutscenes now. We get to see our favorite characters genuinely interacting with each other outside of player-controlled voice lines, personal character abilities and progression, and above all, a story. About a year and a half later, Jeff Kaplan, our original hero, announced his resignation from the Overwatch team in a sad but very brief statement. The game was to be left in the hands of Aaron Keller, one of the co-directors of Overwatch. Jeff has been pretty quiet since then, but we hope he'll reemerge someday with another amazing IP to warm our hearts once more. But with the sad business out of the way, the game was ready to evolve and grow past its original design. Everything was seemingly perfect. We didn't ask for too much, but they still promised to deliver what fans were asking for. With an already polished multiplayer, all that's left is to focus on the campaign and flesh it out where necessary. Considering you guys already had the base for PvE missions, had actual content to present for the announcement, and however many years to work on it. Shouldn't be too crazy, right? It looked like they were making good changes. The team layouts were changing. Taking away one tank was extremely necessary. Gameplay was getting really spongy and boring with just 2 tanks basically absorbing all the damage and receiving heals. Something needed to change in order to eliminate the repetitive nature of certain hero combinations being abused. But that's something we can come back to in a sec. There was going to be new heroes and maps, which was a given. There was a graphics update which made everything a little more smoother, which is also fine. And the addition of the campaign with some hero abilities too. but we didn't get that. And here's where it all falls apart. The game is a complete disaster at launch, not just because players were having trouble logging in, but players would soon come to realize that the team didn't keep their promises. Credits and rewards didn't transfer easily, although they had planned for this transition to be seamless. There's no more grouping, and the ranking system is abysmal. In this Reddit post, this guy talks about how his teammates don't talk in game chat. When groups did exist, you had to ask your teammates if they had a mic, and then ask them who they play. And if they don't tell you anything, sorry, but you can't play with us. The whole point of a grouping system is to find cooperative teammates. And if you just want to play casual, then try quick play or open queue, because this obviously isn't meant for you. Regardless, I refuse to play with teammates I cannot trust. And since you guys want to get rid of grouping, I get to make new friends like this.
Yeah, you guys are gonna ass all game. Don't even, man. The fucking DPS are fucking ass. You guys have 9 and 8 kills. The other team has 30 and 21. Don't even fucking. Are you fucking kidding me? When somebody asks for Lucio and the other person fucking gives it to him, why don't you say thank you too, you cocksucker? You didn't even say thank you, you fucking dick.
Play better.
Everybody fucking wanted to be separate, especially May on that last one. May over there by her fucking self when we're almost about to fucking win. You guys are fucking ridiculous, man. It's like you've never played this game before. The fuck, man?
They make the game free to play for some reason. I get that they want more people to find the game, but this means that new players are gonna get into lobbies with veterans. And this balanced matchmaking that they want to put together so badly just isn't gonna work.
More heals than you. Why do I have more heals than you? 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 Why would I have?
Literal noobs get easy placement into competitive, while veterans have to suffer being partnered with the same people who literally don't know anything about the game. Another reason why the groups feature needs to come back. I mean, seriously, what the actual is going on in that studio? And there's a battle pass now. Oh my god. But wait, there's also no way to earn credits from it. I mean, this wasn't changed until, what, season 2 or 3? And then apparently they added another form of currency to go with it. League tokens are one thing, but why do I have 2 credits that look the exact same? God forbid anyone mixed them up and spent the wrong one. Oh wait, loot boxes that were previously earned through casually playing were taken away and replaced with players needing to spend a minimum of $20 just for one skin. I mean, I'll let this one slide because loot boxes have been getting banned in other countries, considering that they're seen as a form of gambling. And the character abilities were completely scrapped. And now that they took away the story, Overwatch 2 is just Overwatch 1, but with more characters now and like 1 or 2 new modes. And one of them is excruciatingly irritating, and the other is excruciatingly boring. Blizzard was on thin ice with me by then. The multiplayer was barely bringing me as much joy as it used to now. So now all that's left is to wait for the campaign, right? And this is where my biggest complaint comes in. The missing campaign. Unlike some other people, I wasn't expecting the campaign to be open during the beta. Whatever. The game releases, no campaign. Okay, maybe they need another month or 2, or maybe when season 1 starts, it'll be ready. Nothing. Okay, maybe they're running on crunch and they're really close to release. Maybe there's some big release event planned and the devs are waiting for us to put our guards down. Maybe they aren't going to finish it. But wait! You might be one of the people going,
I wasn't really interested in the PvE anyway. I wasn't going to play it.
Fair. But you do realize they still made Overwatch 2 to give you less features than the original, right? Overwatch 2 hits an all-time low at this point. The devs finally confessed to their incompetence, and you can probably imagine the news didn't sit well with fans.
So we had a difficult choice to make. We could continue working on our original vision for Overwatch 2 without a definitive end date in sight, or change our strategy and get something in front of players sooner.
Do we continue to pour all that effort into PvE, hoping that we can land it at some point in the future? Or do we stick with this set of values that we've aligned on and focus on the live game and focus on serving all of you? With everything we've learned about what it takes to operate this game at the level that you deserve, it's clear that we can't deliver on that original vision for PvE that was shown in 2019. What that means is that we won't be delivering that dedicated hero mode with talent trees, that long-term power progression. Those things just aren't in our plans anymore. And we know that this is going to be disappointing to many of you, which is why we wanted to bring it up before we talked about the roadmap.
We went through 3 years of Overwatch 1. We're not even going to count 2019, even though 2019 they'd already kind of shifted away. 2020, 21, 22. Literally, we played the most dead, non-existent, left-alone game in hopes for what we will get in PvE and PvP, and we'll have a nice fun game. Here we are, season 4, And I'm gonna be real with you, I haven't been that impressed with Overwatch since Season 2.
Which is beyond shocking, because that's the entire purpose of Overwatch 2 existing, by the way. You might recall Overwatch 2 launched and there wasn't any of the story mode PvE components to it. They said that was coming in the future, and that's the entire reason why it's named Overwatch 2. Because right now the game is basically just Overwatch 1, but they had that big balance update. It was basically a big patch where they went from 6 to 5 for team comp.
You just can kind of improve the game that you have. I don't feel like the game is ever going to be bad enough to where you have to scrap everything and just make a second release. Because the kind of the point of a sequel is to like build on the first game in a way you can't build on it with like a seasonal update or something. It's just weird. It doesn't strike me as like, oh, they just kind of like realized it after the fact. It's like, no, you probably knew this beforehand.
There's no way they spent half an hour talking about Star Wars just to come with this for 10 minutes. There's no way they did that. They like, let's head over to Aaron and Jared. And then they were like, in 15 minutes, they killed everything that Overwatch 2 PvP was supposed to be.
Nah, I don't like that wording. That's like manipulative. It's like more than we ever done before. Yeah, no fucking shit. If I have a full water bottle and I have never drank from this water bottle ever before, I have now drank more from this water bottle than ever before. Wasn't hard to beat. We started at 0.
And then they slap a roadmap in our face with a bunch of stuff that no one's heard of, and it's just to keep people hopeful that there's more worth to the game besides the campaign.
When you look at the roadmap for the Invasion update, it honestly looks decent, but this is what it looks like if we take out the monetization upgrades, along with the recycled content, the delayed content, and the Invasion bundle. This is it. About 30% of what was actually promised.
And just when you thought all hope is lost, you found out that the PvE story missions have been cut completely. Remember when you thought they were done before? Well, now they're done officially. I thought this was one of those things where devs go, sorry guys, but maybe we'll come back to work on it in the future. But no, they weren't hiding so they can finish the campaign. They were too busy making this? Ooh, wow. What other lame marketing tactics are you going to use to win over your bored players? All they're doing now is throwing in minor additions to grab the players' attention. It's similar to games like Fortnite. Once everyone thinks they're on the brink of falling off, they come up with something like skins or events to drag the players back in. But the difference is that Fortnite knows how to be fun and creative, and Overwatch doesn't. They're constantly working, but it's to distract the players from the absent content. It's so hard not to be angry at this. How could they ruin something this bad when all they had to do was work on the campaign? But instead they want us to be satisfied with being lied to?
No, the movie's lied!
Just level with me for a moment. Overwatch is my version of the Marvel Universe, another universe I am extremely passionate about. I discovered my love for superheroes probably around the time the first Avengers film came out. Everything about it was
perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
This movie had taken the individual stories these characters had developed within their respective films and brought it all together to form a bigger, coherent story. While I didn't go in expecting to like more than one or two of the heroes, I actually came out falling in love with the entire universe. And that's exactly what happened with Overwatch 2. The character's story and world have so much depth that Overwatch 1 spent a lot of time preparing events, skins, and cinematics that correspond with their respective heroes, giving them more substance as well. Overwatch's environmental storytelling hinted at a deeper story to uncover, but it was in the backgrounds of individual character stories. Overwatch 2 was supposed to capitalize on this lore, giving players the long-awaited story regarding the Omnicrisis that destroyed Overwatch, and possibly a war that was to come soon after. And as the universe expanded, it began to utilize the strengths and weaknesses of its characters, giving us more context behind some of our favorite tropes. Comrades going rogue after having an epiphany, young recruits overly hungry for a fight, scarred war veterans doing their best to remain vigilant, leaders searching for a means to an end, highly skilled individuals in niche fields, or narrowing down a war to a fight between two former friends. These are familiar traits that I've grown to appreciate, especially with the storytelling that comes with them. It's part of the reason I fell in love with this game in the first place. A story about heroes who stood for their own beliefs must question their own definition of what a hero should be and if what they're doing is worth it or should be contributed to the team. I'm not embarrassed to admit that the trailers had made me cry at how inspiring their stories are. Yes, we finally get to see our favorite characters in action, and then you remember, it's a game too. This means we'd be able to play alongside these characters and experience their stories in the sequel, accompanied by new maps, characters, designs, and upgradable abilities, all of which turned out to be a huge disappointment and half of a lie. You have no idea how it feels to have everything you cherish just thrown thrown down a drain simply because it's just business. Superheroes are undeniably inspirational. Whether it's a goody two-shoes trying to save everyone, a dangerous self-righteous mercenary, or a violent and vengeful vigilante, these characters inspire us to be better. The Avengers movie made it clear that despite their harsh differences and personal issues, they're still capable of working together to achieve the same goal. But it isn't until the fighting is over that they realize how they won. Being better together. This is even encouraged in-game, either from the blatant fact that this is a team-based game, or voice lines deliberately telling you to rejoin the fight.
Let's get you back in the fight.
Like Overwatch and many other heroic teams say to their supporters,
"Are you with me?"
So, what now? If I knew that the team Jeff left with Overwatch wasn't going to be as passionate about revamping or continuing the PvE after he left, I would have never asked for a PvE, plain and simple. Why risk trying to expand something the remaining developers don't even care about? But without a campaign, what can we expect for the future of Overwatch? More cinematics with character reveals? That's cool, but what story are they leading to? Look at these new characters! But they serve no purpose in the overarching plot anymore. So what correlation do they have with Overwatch besides being a new hero on a team with heroes? And if they don't show any battles that lead into the game, will they just constantly refer to off-screen fights?
Do you ever miss it? The moon?
Sometimes. But there's nothing there for me now.
We could get a movie or TV show adaptation. It's actually a shame they haven't done it yet. I can imagine the Omnicrisis being told in a full-length movie. A TV show could do the same, but have more time to flesh out its characters. Now, I'm not saying they can't make a show or anything, but Arcane beat them to it. I always saw League of Legends as a parallel to the style or aesthetic Overwatch comes from. I can't really describe it because I don't know the specific name for it, but it's very gritty but cartoonish. Stylized fantasy, I guess, if that makes sense. Here's some examples. Yes, obviously the success isn't exclusive to Arcane, but now they have to make something unique. I wouldn't mind the CGI that they use for cinematics, or the anime style they use for the Doomfist introduction, or something more simpler on the lines of the DC animated movies. I guess they could still use the Arcane style, but it would still need some stylistic changes to avoid looking like it's stealing from another game adaptation that did it first. I mean, look at the new TMNT movie compared to Into the Spider-Verse. Mutant Mayhem uses a messy and sketchy aesthetic on top of the Spider-Verse-esque animation, and while both movies take place in New York, they still feel like two completely different worlds. They could make more comics. I would use these comics to flesh out origin stories instead of building up to some overarching plot. And they'd also have to worry about people buying or reading them at all. More skins? Hooray. And don't even bother making the paid missions free, because that's just another slap in the face to anyone who bothered giving you guys money. But this is the problem. I genuinely can't see a future with Overwatch. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of Overwatch 2's life cycle, the game will be extremely similar to how Overwatch 1 was at the end of its cycle. I can't think of anything innovative or interesting they could add that would change the game. And how can I expect anything else when the season quality is progressively getting worse? The additions they're making now are either completely useless or something that was already in the original. What else can they do? Overwatch, like a few other games in recent years, was ruined because they wanted to capitalize off the successful marketing strategies that other games were using. Fortnite. A game I thought I'd never leave, I ended up quitting fully.
But we did those things together!
Well, I mean, it's the least you could do.
The least I quit.
Are you with me?
Yes, Winston, I'm with you. But why isn't Blizzard? Thank you guys so much for watching. Despite everything I just said, I want you to know I still care about Overwatch and its characters. It'll probably always be a part of me, but the best I can do for it now is watch it from afar and wait for a miracle. What? I killed you! Whether you like or hate Overwatch or think anything I said is intelligent or stupid, please tell me in the comments. I know I was very one-sided and pretty aggressive for this video, but I'd still like to hear you guys' opinion on the state of the game. I know I can't be the only person that's still unsatisfied with the way the game is being handled, so maybe we can all connect here. But if you enjoyed me whining about Overwatch or superheroes in general, don't forget to like and subscribe below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.